Today is going to be part 2 of my Thinking About Thinking series. I'd like to give a shout out to Pat Whitty, and I'll leave a link below in the description to his YouTube channel. Pat's been kind of an inspiration to me. I never really thought about trying to say anything very profound until I started listening to his videos, and he is a very smart guy and always has very interesting things to say. If you don't know about his channel, do yourself a favor and watch some of his videos. They're really, really good. So the focus today in this part 2 is begins with target fixation. Now, anybody who has taken the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course, the MSF course, in North Carolina, I suppose the similar course is offered all over the country, but that is just a fabulous course. Let me digress just a bit to say the course, I think when I took it, there was a Friday night session, then all day Saturday, and then Sunday morning, as I recall. And the guys, you don't have to have a bike. They provide the bike for you to ride. And you need a helmet, gloves, over the ankle boots, and jeans and long sleeve shirts, I think, the only requirement. So if you're thinking about getting into biking, do yourself a favor and take that course. I think it costs $100, maybe $150. Boy, is it worth it. The instructors, at least the ones I had, were just absolutely fantastic and very knowledgeable, very experienced. And of course, their whole idea is to prepare you to stay alive. So they emphasize all the gear all the time and all kinds of stuff, but it's a wonderful experience. One of my instructors I still keep up with. I email him once a year to tell him thank you for keeping me alive, and I really feel that way. His name is Tim Alk and lives in Durham. Fabulous guy. Anyway, back to target fixation. In the motorcycle business, target fixation has to do with the general idea of the bike will go wherever you're looking. And so the idea is if you're looking at a pothole and focused on the pothole, the chances are very good you'll run right over it. If you're looking at the retaining wall as you're coming around a curve, there's a good chance you'll run off the road and run into the wall. So after about a year after I started riding, I decided to take the Bike Safety Foundation course. I think it's called Bike Safety Days. I'll put a link to that below as well. This is a program that started in England, and then it was imported into North Carolina. I'm not sure how many other states offer it, but this is a one-day session. Starts early in the morning. You spend some time looking at video slides, presentations in the classroom, and then you go out and ride. And when I took it, this was the Guilford County Sheriff's Department sponsored it. So there were, I think 4 or 5 motorcycle officers, each had on their own bikes, and you would get assigned to one of them, and this guy would sort of tell you where to go, and he would follow you around and watch what you were doing. And I remember they said, now, you know, if you like to drive 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, that's fine, you do it. You just do whatever you would normally do riding. And that was a fabulous experience too. You come back in and they'd talk to you about what they'd observed, and then you'd have some more, I think we'd have lunch and another classroom session, and then a much longer ride. And they'd try to design these rides so that it would expose you to all kinds of different situations So I remember on the general topic of target fixation, they had one of the videos they showed involved a guy and his friend who decided to go to track days, and these guys were like professional riders, but they were going to go practice on the track. And of course, being a track, it was super safe setup. I mean, there were no retaining walls or fence posts or anything else. So anyway, one of the guys, the guy that was behind in the pair, had a video camera going on his helmet. And so you coming around the track, and the guy's watching his friend in front of him. Well, the friend loses it on this turn and goes off the track, low sides off the track, slides out through the pasture. And you can tell that the guy that's got the camera on his helmet is looking right at his friend, obviously concerned about him. And what does he do but run off the track and run over him? This, to me, was the classic example of target fixation. So anyway, back to the standard course, they teach you to look where you want to go. So if you're doing U-turns, for example, the idea is you crank your head around in your eyes and look as far back as you can. If you're going through any kind of curve, you look exactly where you want the bike to go. So the moral is that the bike is going to go where you look where you want the bike to go. Now this connects to another idea that's closely related. I think it's sometimes called the law of attraction. And the general idea there is that you will tend to get the outcome that you think about, whether it's the outcome you want or not. So I think of an example of that. I like to play doubles with a bunch of guys my age. And very often my partner will observe in very unhappy tones that no matter what, he tends to hit the ball right to the guy at the net, who then knocks off a winning volley. Not the desired outcome, of course. And I think this is because he's thinking about the guy at the net. And I always say, well, don't think about the guy at the net. Think about the open court where you'd like the ball to actually go. This whole area, of course, the sports psychologists know all about this, and they provide useful services to all kinds of people who are trying to make better use of their mental resources. And I remember a couple of stories that I thought were interesting. I can't swear that they're true, but they're pretty good stories. Anyway, the first story has to do with an experiment. They took a bunch of 8th grade kids, boys and girls, and they divided this group. I think maybe there were 50 or 60 kids. They divided this group into 2 equal groups, and they went in a gym, and this gym had basketball hoops set up all around the gym. I think there were, of course, 2, one at each end, and probably 2 more on each side. And so they put a group with a number of basketballs at each of these hoops, and they told this group, these kids, just practice shooting free throws. You're going to be here 30 minutes, let's say, and the whole time we just want you to shoot free throws, one after the other, see how well you do. The other group, they sat on the bleachers, and they told these kids to close their eyes and just imagine that they were shooting free throws, and further to imagine that every shot, every free throw they shot went right through the middle of the hoop, nothing but net. And they were to do that for whatever the period was. I think 30 minutes, probably wasn't that long. But anyway, at the end of this period, they had a test in which the kids who had imagined shooting free throws were pitted against the group that had actually been experiencing free throw shooting. And the group that had imagined their being successful shooting the free throws had overwhelmingly the best results in this test. And the idea, I guess, is they had imagined themselves being successful, whereas the other kids had been confronted with the reality that they weren't always going to be successful. And so they had tended to form a very different set of expectations and thought habits about that process. The second story from this same kind of, it also involves basketball. There was, I'm thinking this probably happened in the late 1980s. There was one of the star players for the Los Angeles Lakers was having a terrible slump. Nothing he did on the court went right. Just a disaster. Couldn't shoot, couldn't pass, barely could dribble. And so the team hired a sports psychologist to come in and talk to this player. And they went off on their own in a private room and sat down, and the psychologist said to the player, he said, you know, in the 20-30 minutes before the game starts, I know it's practice for everybody to go in the locker room, go off on their own in some place, and just sit, close their eyes, and prepare themselves mentally for the game. So what are you thinking about during that period of time? And the player said, well, God, you know, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do to screw up today, whether I'm going to dribble the ball off my foot or pass the ball out of bounds. You know, I just imagine one disaster after another. And of course the sports psychologist then said, well, I know what your problem is. You're getting the outcome that you think about. What you need to do is imagine yourself being nothing but successful. And that should be the only thing going through your head in this 20 or 30 minutes is how you're just going to have the best game you've ever had in your life. Everything you touch is going to turn to gold, and et cetera, et cetera. And of course this is not limited just to basketball. I like to watch track and field, and for example, you'll see a high jumper sometime standing on the runway right before they're going to execute their turn at the jump, and they'll close their eyes and rock back and forth, and I'll guarantee you what they're thinking about is sailing over the bar with inches to spare, and really getting that image in their minds. And of course, that's a very good chance that since that's what they're thinking about, that's the outcome they'll obtain. And so, as the moral in the target fixation is to look where you want the bike to go, the moral in this law of attraction is think positively. Think about the outcome that you want to have happen. Well, that's my little lesson for today. One of the great pieces of advice that Pat Whitty gave me was maybe make my little deals a little shorter. And I'm definitely trying to follow that advice. Thank you. Hope you like this video. You'll click on the up button, thumbs up below, and perhaps even subscribe. Thank you.